Yo, 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 everybody, what's going on? Welcome to episode 102 of Pro Corner. I'm your host, ChanmanV, and joining me as always the great Gretorp and Robert Yip. What's up, guys? Oh, actually, I just realized
Hey, Chris, how you doing?
some of these regions aren't even here yet. Hold on, I gotta set some of these. Crap. And let me set these up really quick, guys. I don't know how these slipped my mind here. But
Where'd I go, man? So yeah.
exactly. It's that week off, man. Being off a week, I'm getting all rusty, losing my edge.
Chanman, if there's one thing I've learned about you, you never have a week off, man. I mean, that's a...
Yeah, I know, it's so funny because I didn't do 3 of my shows last week, but it didn't feel like a break because I had so much work. It was all because of work that I couldn't do the shows last week. So a week off of the shows just didn't end up being a vacation at all. But I want to welcome our guest, Mr. ROOT.TheOgnis. It's the first time I think I've ever had you on a show, right?
No. I almost was on one like a long time ago, but then I flaked and then someone like replaced me. But
That's
yeah.
right. That's right. Yeah, it was Pro Corner too. Okay, yeah, I remember that. I actually remember that now.
Yeah.
But
It's okay.
great having you
Chanman,
finally on.
You didn't miss anything. He was nothing back then. So
Exactly.
Yeah.
It was before,
Expansion tear now.
Exactly.
Yep.
Exactly. But it's great to have you on because I for this show and what we're doing now with this whole trying to develop an efficient regimen, I only wanted to have certain players on here and players I think that might have really great ideas regarding this. And as much as I respect all the players, there's only specific people that I want to choose for this, and you happen to be one of them. So it's really, really cool to have you on, and can't wait to kind of go through these topics with you.
Thanks.
But before we get started, Andre, you got pizza coming in or what? I mean, or who's
Oh
been?
yeah, man.
Yeah.
I ordered some delicious pizza from Papa John's by going to ST2. No, wait. What is it?
Are we doing shoutouts early? Are we doing
Pizza.gg.
Mike?
By
Mike?
going to pizza.gg, you can do this too, Chanman. Go ahead and type in pizza.gg. Show everybody the stream.
Here we go, guys. Pizza.gg. We're doing shoutouts early this week.
Exactly. And of course, if you don't know, Papa John's is a non-endemic sponsor that we want to get into the community. But I just love pizza. I didn't even care about that. So I typed pizza.gg, typed Root Gaming because why wouldn't you? And all of a sudden, I'm directed to the Papa John's website. I just type in the promo code, and all of a sudden, everything's 50%. 50% off. That's almost 60% off. That's a lot.
Exactly. And look at this. There's even a status bar. I mean, they totally gamerized this for us. It's amazing. And you can see all the teams and all the participants. I don't know why all the StarCraft 2 Evil Genius players are listed here, yet all the other teams are listed individually. But whatever.
And so I apologize in the future, Chanman, if my doorbell all of a sudden rings and I get delicious pizza delivered to my door.
That's awesome, man. I was expecting this from Mike here, but like coming from you, Andre, that's really awesome.
We all know. Mike, did you get your pizza yet?
No. Is that offer to buy me one?
We all realize
you're so
that.
kind.
I tell you what, Mike. You can pay 50% of the full price, and I'll pay the other 50%.
Oh,
How about that?
Alright, so kind. I might take you up on that.
But no. Good. It's definitely a good time to buy pizza. I think it's this week, right?
Yeah, it's
this
until
promo.
Sunday.
Yeah, so the promo is Pizza GG, and you'll get 50% off any Papa John's pizza. Definitely do that, guys, because this is, for those of you who don't know, this is kind of like the proving ground or just the test case for Papa John's getting into esports. So if this goes well, then we might start seeing Papa John's as showing up on some team sites as sponsors. So that's kind of.
And there's a lot of cool things they're giving away too. I should mention that, like, there's 10 tiers right now. I think we're only in tier
1.
0.
We're in tier 1 right now.
Oh, we're in pizza.gg. Yeah, we're in tier 1. You're right. But apparently they give away 25 Papa John's gift cards to people who purchase pizza, and then it goes all the way down. 10 is Eatery Liquid and Root will host a community pizza party at an upcoming North American live event. That's awesome, man.
That is awesome. That's definitely
I
awesome.
would love to see tier 10 go down.
Yeah,
Let's
definitely.
make it happen, guys. Let's
I
make
mean,
it
pizza
happen.
and gaming. I mean, come on, right? It's like they go.
Yeah, I said non-endemic,
they go hand in
but
hand.
is it really non-endemic? It's like
No, that's a good point. That's actually a very good point.
it's like nerds and not showering. Is that really non-endemic?
No comment. No comment. All right, guys. Well, that's enough for pizza. But I'll definitely be getting it too. Actually, I didn't even think it just didn't even dawn on me to order pizza until today. So it actually works out really great that I'll be ordering pizza because today is pretty common day that I order pizza because my kids love pizza and Mondays is usually that day. So I'm gonna have to be ordering some delivery tonight. But okay, let's get started. Today's topics, hopefully you can check it out on the Reddit thread. Somebody posted the Reddit thread in there. Vice, if you're there, type in the Reddit thread for all the stream folks. I kind of listed out the topics. You guys can kind of keep up with us. But again, we're going to be kind of covering just one or two topics from each of the areas of focus that we're going to have on the show. For those of you who didn't see the last episode, the area of focuses will be the first being lifestyle and mental area. The second one being more practice, like very specific practice, mechanical type of things. And then the third one is more of a competition type of training. Competing, you're just training for actual competition at tournaments or just any kind of competition, competing environment. Okay, so we're going to start out with the lifestyle and mental, and wanted to kick it off by talking about shifting priorities, and it has a little bit to do with just what's kind of been going on lately too, the last couple weeks, us hearing about things like Idra kind of kind of not playing anymore and changing more to streaming and casting. I mean, he's always streamed, but casting and that sort of thing, and also the announcement of a couple players retiring, being Stefano and Maya, but we won't talk about Maya much since it was leaked apparently. but we're starting to see more, hear about more of that. So, kind of wanted to kick things off by really talking about just that question of whether playing still brings you enjoyment, still brings you fulfillment, and the process of practicing and improving also is bringing that fulfillment, and having that be kind of a recurring question that I think every player or every person, anybody who plays StarCraft 2, you should really ask yourself that question all the time. And, if that question is no, right, then it's time to, either stop playing the game or shift your priorities if you're a professional gamer and that sort of thing. And just kind of want to kick that topic off in that regard. So what do you guys think about that? Just that statement I just made right there. We'll start with you, Mike, since you're a guest.
Yeah, it's kind of funny because I actually kind of went through that whole process myself, like a long, long time ago. I started playing StarCraft 1 back in like 2003, and then I played for like a few years, like really competitive, and then started playing like nationally and like WCG and stuff like that, and then it came like I graduated high school, and then it was kind of around the same time I kind of burnt out. Maybe just like practicing or just playing too much, but I just kind of wanted like a new challenge, I guess. I mean, I didn't really achieve much in StarCraft 1, but I basically just stopped cold turkey just for like college, just kind of like shifted my priorities. And yeah, so I didn't play RTS games for like 4 years. I didn't play any games, and then I actually came back like right after I graduated. And the reason why I did that was just because I actually wasn't really happy with what I was doing, like with my degree and stuff. I actually have a degree in bio, and I actually didn't want to do that at all. I just kind of did it because I was like good at memorizing. So it was kind of like the train tracks of like my undirected life. And yeah, basically after I graduated, I was like, I didn't know what I wanted to do. And then I actually came back to competing in StarCraft, and that's kind of when I started to like play more, and like I joined Quantum Gaming. So yeah, like I had that transformation, and then I kind of came back, so I reverted to competing.
So how often do you revisit that question?
What, like if I still want to like compete?
Yeah.
It was actually pretty often. I actually regretted my decision a lot when I was like in the Quantic house.
Oh, ouch.
Because I wasn't.
Ouch.
No, no. I mean, like I was practicing like 8 hours a day, and then I would just go to MLG, and then I would still lose in like the loser brackets, like foreigners and stuff. So that was quite disappointing. Like I basically put everything on hold to go professional, I guess, quote unquote. Like I don't really consider myself professional, but yeah, I basically put everything on hold to kind of do this, and then I didn't really see any results or anything after practicing so much. So yeah, I was definitely asking myself a lot, but then I kind of just got to this point where I started really liking the game, kind of like once HOTS came out, so that kind of like rejuvenized my I guess passion, I guess, and yeah, like I don't really ask it too much nowadays, but I was asking myself that quite often, like in Wings of Liberty.
Yeah, yeah. Andre, what do you think about all this, and maybe how it may, in what way it might pertain to just say like Idra and Stefano, guys who have had a lot of success, right, or just are making quite a bit of money from this and are deciding to, to switch roles or just actually get out of it altogether.
Yeah, I mean, it's something really important that you have to keep in mind whatever you're doing in life, right? Because you can be good at something and you can like something, but normally when you are good at something and you like it at the same time, that's where you're going to actually be good at whatever you're doing. And it's completely apparent for, honestly, both of these players. Idra obviously was very good at what he was doing, but he didn't like what he was doing. And after time, it's going to weather on you to the point where you fade out into obscurity. And just his skill level, you're fading. And that's really what happened with Idra. He's losing to people that in no way, shape, or form should he ever lose to. But because he's almost built up these mental blocks in his head because of his elitism almost too. I really think that's all a product of his mentality of how much he hates the game, to be completely honest, and how he thinks a certain way because he wants it to be that way rather than, letting the position call what should happen. With Stefano, after talking with him, he's been hanging out at the NASL studios like a couple months ago and then just a couple weeks ago. He doesn't like the game either. He just doesn't like where he is. He doesn't like training. He doesn't like how hard training is. And he's just not having fun anymore. And that's why he's getting out of StarCraft, because he's in a situation where he just doesn't like what he's doing. He knows he's not going to perform well if he keeps that up. So he gets out. And I really respect Stefano's decision a lot more than I would say Idra's position, because I think Idra kind of milked it a little bit too long.
Well, his transition to Idra's is not as drastic as just literally cutting off completely, right? So it's different. And you made a good point about, obviously the best place to be is whenever you're doing something you love and you're good at, which if you guys have ever read Sir Ken Robinson's The Element, that's what it's all about. Like, I recommend reading that book. It's a great book. Talks about just finding that one thing that you're good at and you just really, really enjoy and you're in your element, that sort of thing. But it is the most difficult when you are good at something and you're just not happy doing it, right? And kind of like what you were talking about too, Mike, about just bio and you being really good. You probably have a great memory and that sort of thing. I kind of went through that phase too when in regards to engineering, and it was super easy for me, and I just hated. I just did not like it at all, and it was a tough decision. But eventually, I ended up making it back when I was in school, and just switched over to something completely different. I think I was like a psych and music major for like a semester or two, and then I switched over to computer science after that. But I went through that phase. Went through that phase of just kind of searching, for what I would enjoy and what I could be good at, that sort of thing. Yeah. So, Robert, what do you think, just from a psychologist point of view?
I think there's so much that we could talk about regarding the fact that, let's say, Idra and Stefano are so different mentally. They've got a completely different approach to practice. It's almost like polar opposites. One will just grind out ladder constantly, hoping or presuming that the end result will be favorable. The other will play a little bit, but when he does, he in Wings of Liberty, especially Stefano, tended just to stomp everybody, so it wasn't even close. But now I feel that the same way from Brood War to StarCraft 2 and StarCraft 2 to HOTS, the skill gap, you could argue that it's been the lesser players are closer to the higher end players to a certain extent. The really, really good players will stand out a lot more, but I guess pure mechanics won't win you games like it used to. So I feel that's where Idra, he suffered for a long time with the fact that, as Andre said, lower players would beat him, and they never should. And if they were playing a different game, they probably wouldn't beat him. So he had little or no motivation to play the game, apart from just grinding out ladder because he was used to it, and he probably had to reach a number certain of streaming hours. So I feel that his intrinsic motivation was so low because it wasn't really his choice anymore. He felt like he was just going through the motions, just filling out, signing out a paycheck every day, and that's why he was quite, rough with his fans, for example.
Well, he said that he just hasn't liked the game for a long time. I mean, he's been very public about that, and it's hard to say. But the whole thing about like lesser players catching up to you, that's really just a sign that some of these players just haven't been improving at the top. It's not that they couldn't have continued to improve. Obviously, the level of improvement there is diminishing returns after a certain point, but I definitely think the top side just the improvement has probably gone down when it comes to a lot of the players that we know. I mean, some obviously some of the folks that you see, it's just they're playing at a crazy level. Just some of the Korean players, for instance. I mean, they're at a level that's at way above I think some of the other folks. But for the most part, the popular players that we know, I think some of them have tiered off a little bit and just need to kind of hop on that improvement. Just that improvement ship again, that sort of thing. Okay, so anyways, that's shifting priorities. I think that was a good start. Why don't we switch over to a little bit of kind of the second area, which has to do more about what we traditionally talk about when we talk about practicing and that sort of thing. When you hear about it just in the community in that respect. And this has to do, and I kind of want to lead the topic in by talking about individual versus group practice, and we'll kind of split it up. I think it's really important to kind of separate the two. And Mike, I think you kind of do that because you were telling us offline that you start off your day doing customs and looking at replays and doing that sort of thing. And obviously customs have to do with playing with other people, right? So that kind of falls into more of the group practice. And then later on you do more of the streaming ladder type of practice, which you could fall under individual. So talk to us a little bit about that and what your thoughts are on just splitting the two. And do you do that on purpose, or it just happens that that's how your schedule just lays out right now?
Yeah, I actually do that on purpose. I could just like ladder like the whole entire day, like do that in the morning and then do that later on. But I feel like it's the most effective if I kind of do like focus practice first, like basically doing kind of like drills. Just kind of like focusing on like a build or like a matchup, something really specific, and then kind of just working on kind of like just like free practice with like ladder, just because it's a little bit more chaotic. It's not really like you're not like distorting the game at all, so you can just kind of react, like on what you scout and stuff. So it kind of replicates like a real game or like a tournament game. Yeah, so I think just like a healthy mix of the two is probably like the best, at least for me. Like that's personally what I feel. I feel like some people benefit more from playing more customs, and some benefit more just playing more ladder. But I just try to do like kind of like a healthy mix.
Oh, what do you guys think about that statement? I kind of disagree a little bit with that last statement. Like that some people like customs more, and some people like.
Oh no,
ladder.
well, no, I was saying some benefits more from like doing more customs, I would say.
Do you think that's...
I don't think it's like exactly like 50-50. Some rather like it would help them more doing like 70-30 or maybe it might be 30-70.
Yeah. So part of me thinks that the issue right now is that like people just don't have enough people to play customs with to fully benefit from it. Because like if you're only playing with the same person every day, let's just say you only have one practice partner, then I could definitely see that being the case. Like laddering, I could see laddering being more beneficial than custom. But if you had like, let's say just had a list of 10 people you could play with that all have different styles, different races, then I don't see how it could be better. I don't see how ladder could be better, honestly, as a regular form of practice. Jump in, anybody.
I think it depends how you approach the custom games.
Yeah.
If you approach the custom games with the same mentality as ladder, as in I'm just going to play my teammate 5 times like I would ladder with no actual plan, then it's really not going to work as well as it should. If that's the case, then you might as well ladder. But as Mike said, if you go in with focus training for the custom games, I'm going to work on a build order or do, let's say, competition-specific training. So I'm going to do a best of 5 and treat it like a tournament best of 5, as in I'm not going to just play the same way every game. I'm going to mix it up like I would do in a tournament. Then that's much better for both players, the guy who's actually you're playing against and yourself, I think.
Right.
Yeah. Like sometimes like if I'm working on a new build, I might just go down like a checklist, like do every all in against me, like a mortal all in, blink all in, 4 gate, then maybe like a 2 base immortal and stuff like that. And then, if I have any problems with that, then I'll keep on like working on that specific like all in. Yeah, so that's kind of what I mean when it's like really kind of focused, like drilling practice. You can't really do that on ladder. Like, yeah, you might get blink all in, and that might be good practice, but maybe the next time you get blink all in is like 10 games from now or 20 games from now. So it's not really
it's
like that effective practice.
Yeah, I mean the practice that you get on ladder. So it's kind of funny because the focus practice I think is honing how you deal with every situation, and then the ladder is just kind of testing that to an extent. So like obviously anything can happen in that game. And it's just really testing your deduction type of just the speed of how you deduce things, right? And that sort of thing. So I think people use it kind of backwards sometimes. Actually, they use the ladder as that other form of training, even though it's not very efficient. Andre, you look like you want to say something here.
Yeah, you do have to partition it a little bit because there are 2 types of custom gamings. I'm going to bring it back to this example because not everybody watched the first episode, but in StarCraft Brood War, we had something called IC Cup, and what you would do, a lot of times, if you wanted to train a specific matchup, you'd say Terran versus Zerg, and you would pick like 1 to 3 maps. Normally, you would only pick 1 map, and you would say Terran versus Zerg, 1v1 on Python, and you would only get people that responded to that. And I think that's a type of custom game that lacks completely in the community. That does not exist. You only have your set friends. You want to have that ladder environment, but controlled, where you can know the matchup, you can know what map you're on, and you can keep training it that way. And then the other type of custom game should be, I'm training specifically against your style. I'm going to see what you're really good at and try to hone my skills to be a little bit better against that. So if you're very macro oriented, let me see how I do against a macro player, and then maybe you play macro style against them, maybe you try to stop them from going into macro style, different things like that. But the 2 type of custom games need to be partitioned, and I feel like if we have those 2 types, we can get rid of ladder. And I think that's what you're talking about, particularly Chris, where it's like ladder practice is that more inefficient. Realistically, we should have only custom games 100% of the time, but we don't have the player pool to really draw from to do something like that.
Well, we have the player pool. We just don't have the network right now.
Correct.
For each player, because unfortunately it's something that you have to build yourself.
Yeah.
You can be on teams, and then your teammates, like Mike, who do you practice with, like in custom games?
Yeah, like for like TVZ, like when I was practicing for like my WCS group and my WCS match, I was practicing with Kane, Henderless, Toxic, just some Zerg ladder players. Like I even just messaged him afterwards, so like, hey, you want to play? Today I was practicing with Grubby and Harsham.
Nice.
So
okay, so they're not just teammates, right? I mean, you actually have a network that spans.
Yeah. Like I've been talking to people. Clarity Gaming is actually having like this. They just started like this practice group, so
Excellent.
I kind of joined that,
Excellent.
and they were doing it from like 1 p.m. to like 4 p.m. So that's pretty good as well. But yeah, like not everyone's like available to that.
No, that's really cool.
So-
Yeah, I talked to Mike. I think I talked to Mike about that a while ago, like him setting that up and everything. So that's awesome. Like, how many people are in that Clarity group? I actually don't know.
It's still a little bit small. It's probably like, I guess 10 people right now, but we're trying to kind of expand it. So
That's awesome. That's definitely great. Yeah, so I mean, every player, I feel like you should. I encourage you, even if you're like a lower level player, you know, you just want to practice. Just, you know, if somebody plays a good game with you on ladder, go add them. Go check. You know, just send them a message. See if they want to practice with you sometime. And the more players you have at your dispense, you know, that can help you, you know, improve any aspect of your game, or just play just custom games with, then you should actually do it. Because again, ladder is just, I think ladder should be used more from the standpoint of testing what you got. You know, it's not quite a competition scenario, but it's that level in between where you're like anything random things can happen, right? And you have to test how you react to it, and if you react to it properly.
I think
The ladder,
problem is just. Okay, go on.
Sorry, Mike, you go.
Oh no, I was just saying like probably just the biggest problem is just because ladder's so easy to use. It's just
Yeah.
like right there, so
Yeah.
you just hit the button. It's a lot easier than trying to like build a network yourself. So
Yeah,
think
and
that's
that's
kind of the
the
problem.
main issue. Yeah, it's the main issue. Just having players just be more proactive, right? And it's great that Clarity will set these things up, because honestly, the easier that things are accessible for the players, the more likely they'll be used. And
Yeah.
you know, unfortunately, that's kind of what has to happen. Is like other people, I think, might have to provide these things for it to actually
Chat channels, man.
chat
You need
channels.
chat
Yeah,
channels.
Skype channels are awesome. Skype combos.
No, like
Or-
like
Oh, chat channels in the game. And
In the
Battle.net
game.
channels. Yeah.
yeah, it is stupid how we still don't have that right now. Like it is so silly.
it's funny. I actually like coach a lot, and then if they want to add me, I'm like, hey, come to ChanmanV, and like it has to be like 80% of the people I coach, like they don't even know how to like find a channel.
I know,
Like
it's
how
so
do I
sad.
even join a channel? I'm like
All right,
So-
everybody right now, there's a Pro Corner channel right now, so guys. So everybody go into Battle.net right now. and I don't know, does everybody know how to do it? Everybody know how to actually get into these channels? Actually, should we walk? Actually, I don't have it set up to really walk you guys through it, but there's different groups now. There's not just channels, guys, now on Battle.net. For those of you that don't know, for whatever reason, there's actually groups that are assigned to that you can create. So I created a Pro Corner one, right? I think I created a Pro Corner one even before it started. So you can actually just join the Pro Corner group. You don't have to actually be in the chat, but you can just join the Pro Corner group. And then I think every time you log in, as long as you have that Pro Corner group open, that it'll just automatically put you in the chat, which is nice because it's good. There's something that's missing from Battle.net is that that kind of thing that Skype has in the combos, right? When you log on, you're instantly in that group, right? And in some ways, like you can actually see everything that you missed too. Like we kind of don't have that in Battle.net, and I think that really hurts the social aspect of it, or just this kind of networking aspect of it. But you can kind of simulate at least a little bit by just keeping those windows open in your taskbar, like in StarCraft. So every time that you log on, you're automatically put into these chat groups. It's kind of a nice way to do that. But okay, so anyways, that's so the networking thing, we kind of discussed that a little bit. I wasn't planning on discussing it, but that's good that we actually discussed it a little bit. But I did want to talk about just some of the things that we're working on right now, or just the three of us, me, Andre, and Robert, are working on. And I want to make it clear to folks that what we're doing on the show isn't just about just talking about stuff. I want to make it very, very clear that we are going to put in place tools for you guys. And thankfully, I have the help of some folks, and I encourage more help from the community for doing this. And I wanted to give you an update on some of the things that we're working on. So, number one, replay archive. That is, so I had the fortunate, I was fortunate to talk to this guy, Kevin Leung, who has a site, spawningtools.com, which is right here. It's a website he just put together because, he's kind of like May's engineer, works for startup. He just wanted to do some things for the community on the side, and I kind of hooked up with him, and he has this site that's all about replays and uploading. Simple replay site that you would see anywhere else. But the beauty of it is that you know, I'm getting a chance to work with him and adding product specs and adding things that you know, that he can add to this site that will help, you know, in regards to replays. And you know, one of the things that we want to do here on Pro Corner is do a replay archive, which will consist of replays that are 5 seconds long, and that will have specific scenarios defined for each of them. And our first go around, and kind of what we're doing right now, I don't have anything to quite show you quite yet, because we're still trying to work out naming conventions and stuff like that. But what we're going to do for the first pass is we're going to have about 40 to 45 replays that all start, you know, just that all have the standard openings for every matchup on every map. So just to generalize it, it'll probably be games that start at the 5-6 minute mark for every single map, every single matchup. So you and your practice partner can start immediately without having to do the stupid, you know, the just the openings that everybody in the freaking world know. Like, you know, just example, Nexus first against, you know, 3-base Zerg type of thing, right? That'll just happen immediately. And we're going to start there. We're gonna make those replays. I kind of want to get the system down, and I'm trying to collect as many replays from players. I'm trying to get as many players I know, including yourself, Mike, if you don't mind too. Like, if you have replays, send them to me, and that have like specific, obviously, matchups and that kind of thing. And we're just going to try to get that first pass done. And once I get that first pass done, I hopefully will have a decent process to kind of do this fairly quickly for the three of us, like Robert, Andre, and whoever else wants to help. And yeah, so, you know, I just want to make sure you guys know that, you know, when we say we're going to make a replay archive, we're going to do it, and it's going to be available to you guys. And the way it's going to be, the way I'm going to be make it, you know, the way you're going to be able to access this on this spawning tool site is there's a search right now, but I had Kevin add a custom tagging mechanism to this, so we can tag it with a lot of different types of metadata, like matchups obviously is a default player, the races obviously are pretty default custom, but I'll put like a Pro Corner meta tag in there so that you guys can find all the replays really easily that we'll be doing for this archive. And hopefully that will be clear enough for you guys. And obviously from your feedback, we'll be doing it. You know, I'll be tweaking it some more with Kevin. But so anyways, that's kind of the first thing that I want to give you an update on. The next thing I want to give you an update on is really an analytics tool that we're going to be working on. And you know, a lot of you guys are probably saying, "Oh, we already have SC2 Gears," and SC2 Gears is great. And I think every player should use SC2 Gears. Actually, Mike, do you use SC2 Gears at all?
I actually do not.
Okay.
I definitely should.
Yeah, it's for those of you who have never used it, it's a great way to really get an overall kind of statistical analysis of just, you know, your results, how you do against every matchup, how you do against, you know, on every map, what your APM and stuff is like on every map, and kind of the graphs. You can kind of see, you know, some nice statistical analysis on replays. It's all based on replays. But the thing about SC2 Gears for me is that it's not specific enough. I think we can go even more specific in terms of some of the things that, you know, Andre and Robert, we've talked about in terms of how the players can improve. I think there's a lot more micro, not micro meaning the game, but finer kind of statistics we can get that I think will help the players. And the way we're going to do that is I'm going to work with Kevin, the same guy that's doing the other site, to make a custom tool for you guys that will pull these things based on replays that you guys have, and you know, it'll be just an added level to SC2 Gears. So ideally, I'd like to see your players using both SC2 Gears with this new tool. And I don't have a lot to tell you right now because I'm kind of in the product design of it. Product spec design of it with Kevin, and that's the beauty of working with Kevin. He's an engineer too, so I can, like, we speak the same language. He knows. I mean, I can tell him exactly what I want, and I know exactly what's possible. And I'll be getting with Robert and Andre a little bit more, and you know, I'll get some feedback from you guys too, the players too, Mike. But how's that sound to you, Mike? Like this?
Wait. So what exactly is that, like, replay extractor thing you were talking about? You said you can, like, extract builds.
No, so the thing about the replays is, you know, the replays have metadata, or they have like scripts and data that's within the replay itself. Mm-hmm. That's how you're able to see, like, the build orders at the end of the games, right? And things like that, right? There's data like that that's in the game, and it's pretty rich data, honestly. And SC2 Gears pulls some of that. That's what SC2 Gears bases all of its data on. It's just really all this data I'm talking about. But it's not all
limited, though.
Yeah, it's not limited. It's limited, and we can make tools that actually create heuristics or create additional analysis from this data versus just showing you the data. Like, for instance, me and Kevin were talking about just creating a heuristic that can determine openers just based on the build order listed. And creating a range of build order and timings, and then just giving you, okay, his opening is so and so and so.
Yeah.
Just defining those openings, so that you can just you can just get a very quick analysis of like a group of replays. Like if you're scouting a player, for instance, or you're just like trying to get a sense of your own replays. But that's just an example. There's a lot of stuff. I mean, you could do things like third CC timing or third hatch timing. When guys go layer, when guys go hive, and you can get those average timings for replays of similar games. You know what I mean? You can get that kind of analysis. I mean, it goes even beyond that. But right now, honestly, like I'm kind of just looking at this like giant pool of possible data right now, and I'm trying to figure out the best way to group things. So I'm not quite to the point where I can tell you all the specs for what we're trying to do, but hopefully in the next week or two, that some of those will be tougher to find, a lot clearer. But yeah,
what I would love is something like expected values for instance, like it's not going to be a complete causation type of thing, but let's say I'm looking for robo timings and I'm doing trial and error with this. Okay, sometimes I put it down to 5:30. Sometimes I put it at 6 minutes. Sometimes I put it at 6:30. I would love to see like a changing EV of my win rate based on, or at least damage done based on when I get this robo. In Protoss versus Terran. Like little things like this, it's really important because a lot of people, especially casters, we throw around like EV things like, he could go this, but you have like 40% EV, and it's completely out of their asses most of the time. I'm guilty of something like this because I just go with anecdotal statistics that might be completely wrong, to be completely honest. But I think that type of stuff is really, really important, and the level to which we need our statistics, I think, is so important. Look at like MLB, look at NBA, any of the stuff that is mainstream right now for sports. That stuff is very, very heavily weighted in terms of math. I mean,
look,
what was that?
Look at baseball. It's like baseball, right? Like Moneyball.
It's all a number game.
It's not Moneyball. Was it Moneyball? What is it called? It's the Billy Bean story, right? Which is like everything is based on numbers. Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah.
He revolutionized the scene. I think StarCraft really needs to realize that we're more and more like, a numbers game than anything else, and we need to really take almost the poker essence into this and realize that we need to think like this. By the way, I just want to interrupt real quick. Chanman, look what I got.
Papa John's, baby.
It's delicious.
Is that jalapenos?
So why? Okay, so my question to Papa John's is actually, where is it? Shoot, I lost it. My question is why isn't Gretorp listed here, guys? Why isn't Gretorp listed here?
Well, I'm not on any of those teams.
I know, I'm just kidding.
But I chose Root Gaming because I love my brothers over there.
That's right.
No, it's just because of me. Don't lie.
Yeah, I guess you're.
I need my own button.
Exactly. So, Mike, what kind of things would you like to see in an analytic tool?
No, I mean, like, I actually haven't thought about this before. It's actually pretty interesting. I think it'd be kind of cool, like, say, if I was researching an opponent, just kind of knowing, like, the exact timings he goes for, like, a robo, like he was saying, or, like, the expected value, like, oh, his win rate is really low when he does this, so I can, do a counter build or something. That would be kind of cool. But yeah, I haven't really thought too much about it, but it seems like there would be a lot of like utility to it, especially for like just a pro gamer. It's not even like what Gretorp was talking about, like a casting and all the statistics like that.
Yeah, and it's like I don't want to. I definitely want to have a broad range of things that we can do because obviously a lot of these like EV talk, it's pretty sophisticated, and a lot of people don't even need that, and it's more like individual based versus analyzing data type of kind of thing. So we'll have like a wide range of things that you can check on, even just like probe count at certain times, stuff like that. But the cool thing about being able to create like heuristics and some way business logic to it is that we can derive really cool things from it. And that EV thing is very possible. In fact, Kevin just messaged me and said that what you were talking about, Andre, is possible for sure. So
yeah. I know cool. It's very rough though too. Like it's going to require a lot of work.
It does, and we're gonna kind of staircase through it, right? We'll start with just some things that we think that I'll get a sense from Mike, you and some other players, what you'd like to see, and we'll kind of start there.
But thankfully, it's going to be pretty binary, right? Like it's either going to be success, which is pretty easy to view. It's either you're massively behind, or excuse me, you're massively ahead, or you won the game.
Well,
I don't know.
It doesn't have to be binary. I mean, like I would like the game to be more cerebral, right? I mean, it is a cerebral game.
Correct.
So, I mean, there is a level of complexity to this game that not everybody necessarily thinks about every day. So, for folks that want to go that amount, these tools definitely can help you in that regard. And for those that don't, necessarily want to go that route, this tool should still be able to help you. So, that's really the point of all this. And, I hopefully you guys will use it and try it out and, just really get your feedback on it. All you viewers too, let me know like what kind of things that you'd like to see. And I'll definitely take it into consideration and possibly add it to it. But I will be updating on all these tools like as we go. Another tool that kind of popped up, it's on Reddit right now too, is SU2 Planner. Me and Andre were kind of looking at it earlier. It's right here. And
oh yeah, I saw that. It looked really cool.
Yeah, and it's really cool. The one thing hopefully if the SU2 Planners developers or owner is looking at this, I think it's really, really cool. It's easy to use. It's like you literally just type in like drone, hatchery, and then it literally creates a timeline for you like this. And the way you store it right now, you can type ChanmanV's crazy build, that kind of thing. And the way you store it right now is it creates a URL that's specific to this build. And you pretty much bookmark this build. And every time you want to bring it up, you can bring it up and kind of check your builds or tweak it or whatever you want to do. It'd be cool if there was authentication to it, where you could just like store all your builds inside of the site. But for at least for now, you can bookmark all your builds this way, and it's a good just a good way just to document it instead of like pulling out Notepad, like the old school
really
day 9
it's
style.
10 times better than here's the benefits of this. What it does, you don't choose the time all the time. So if you're going to build multiple probes, it tells you exactly how the most efficient way to do this is, and it tells you the time. So if you cursor over, like, let's say the pylon, it'll tell you when it starts and when it finishes. Now, this is super important for a lot of timings. For instance, let's just say I'm doing a Zerg versus Protoss. I know when Immortal All-In is coming. When is my Groove Spines going to finish? My range for my Hydralisks. And I can time it out that it goes 10 minutes, and I can really see how efficient my build is going to be. That's where it's really important, and that's where it's really good. The problem I have with it right now is that there's so much in the game between 5 minutes and 10 minutes that is subject to variable change. Basically, I see something that my opponent is doing, I'm doing something completely different. So it's hard to get a new series of reactions, right, just based on this, because all of a sudden I'm doing 5 minutes more worth of stuff or 6 minutes more worth of stuff.
Yeah, that's true, but
could you add like different branches to like the planner? Like, say if you scout this, like in the planner, like at 5 minutes, they would have like. That's what I'm referring to. Yeah. Yeah, that'd be really cool.
We really need that.
Yeah, well, okay, so obviously that would be a neat thing to do, but I think the root of the problem that you're talking about has a lot to do with just the timeline in general. If the timeline was just relative to the actual build order, then we could talk about derivatives, right? And it would have nothing to do with the actual time. It would just have to do with you being completely clear as to what this build order should look like given a certain point, right? Because that's what happens a lot of times in the game. Like you scout something, then all of a sudden, boom, your kind of endpoint changes, right? And how to get to that endpoint is based on whatever knowledge you have in your head. And it's usually kind of what build order or what sections of build orders you kind of piece out, right, to get to that point. Is that right? I mean, is that right? Way to think about it, or no? Either anybody, guys. Anybody.
So what you're saying is that as soon as it sections off, it ends there?
No, what I'm saying is that like it's kind of that concept of always having always having what your endpoint is, in your head. You always have a single endpoint in your head at any point in the game, right? That endpoint's either a timing or it's usually a timing, honestly. Or it's like max, like your max supply, and that's when you're going to attack, or it's something, right? Your strategy usually has a single endpoint at any given point. That endpoint changes as you find out more information, right?
Correct.
If it doesn't, if you're going into it with a clear open head and there's no endpoint, then it's not efficient. So the most efficient way to do it is always have a specific thing you're doing deliberately, right?
Correct. Yes.
And because of that, I think as that endpoint changes, right, the times is kind of like irrelevant, right? That's the actual timeline in the game is irrelevant. But what's relevant is the relative time, right? Like, or how you change how you redirect your build order, right? And but you have to have knowledge of just that section of the build order to get to, say, like you're changing from mutants.
Control group, you're saying.
Well, control group in what way? I'm not sure what do you mean.
Okay, so okay. I am going for Hydralisks. Okay? I'm going for Hydralisk on 3 base.
Yeah.
You're saying we need kind of a relative timing, right? Because right now I have my point set.
Yeah.
So by me going 16 Hydralisks, how fast can I get that with my upgrades, and what upgrades can I get?
Yeah.
Okay? That is, I would say, the control group, the from which we find relative timing. So if there's this 8-minute attack with zealots with +1, I need some sort of variable change around 6:30 to compensate for that 8-minute attack. So that how does that affect my Hydralisk attack? But I already know that's going to affect it, let's say 30 seconds or whatever. That's my target goal. But I know relative to if I didn't have to defend against that attack, I would get it at 11 minutes or 10 minutes.
Sure, but once you know that attack's coming, everything just changes at that point. So whatever your solution is to that timing that you've scouted, whether it's possible to defend it or not, I mean, whatever you've derived from it, you because of your knowledge of the game, like pre-knowledge, or just all the work you've done beforehand, you should know what the appropriate move is. And then based on that, you have to figure out from where you are at that point in the game, what your build looks like to get to that point now, right? Or what moves you need to make. And that's what I mean by relative.
But isn't that a false assumption, though, to say we should know exactly what the right follow-up is? Because that kind of pigeonholes your creativity, in my opinion. Right now, for example, I'll say in TVP, a lot of protesters are having a lot of trouble dealing with Hellbat drops.
Yeah.
Because it's impossible to really understand any relative timings, because it's a very cheap attack, 300 minerals, 100 gas.
Yeah.
And there's a huge array of things that our opponents can do. So I feel like that is something that's really powerful. I know I'm going into balance a little bit, but that's something that's obviously really powerful that there is no set thing to do against. Like, it's impossible to really say there's a correct move ahead.
Well, actually, Mike, let me get your thoughts on it first.
Yeah, no, I would have to agree with that, and it also kind of depends on like how effective their drop is too. Like, if it just gets totally shut down, you might have a different response if they kill maybe like 10 probes. So there's like way too many variables to it to like know exactly what to do. So I'm not exactly how like you could adjust like SE2 planner to like deal with all of that. I actually I'm not sure if you could.
Yeah.
But I think it would just be like kind of like a basic like build planner like early on.
Yeah, I think SE2 planner works better for deliberate builds. Builds that dictate So like for instance, if you're a Terran, I hate to throw that out, but if you're a Terran like Mike here, like the Ognis here, like you could probably map out a good 10-minute build right there. That probably would not be effective.
What are you talking about?
but for Zerg or for even for Protoss, for instance, I mean it might be harder to use that tool specifically for that reason. But that's a good point. I mean that's a good point about the Hellbats. I mean, things shouldn't be black and white. There's no answer to every single tactic or move in the game. So it's more just having to deal with, like figure out what the strategy is to deal with that, to kind of bridge you through that portion of the game. It doesn't have to be the answer again. It just has to be something that's some kind of solution, right? Versus not having one at all, right?
I would love SC2 Planner if it was more like a tree diagram. Right, where we have this one main line of this one main root, basically, and then you have these tiny little roots that are coming off that are, like, let's say I am doing standard Terran versus Protoss play. I'm going for that 9-minute, 30-second medevac timing. If there is, like, a gateway all-in at 7 minutes to 8 minutes, what is my reaction? How do I actually deal with that? And then it's actually like a line, so you see everything that's coming in. You see what to actually expect. And that way we have almost an open source of high-level build orders rather than just regular build orders. The whole 10 pylon, 12 gateway, it's almost archaic compared to what the pros actually think about when they're going throughout the things. We're looking for, as Terran, you're looking for pylon counts, you're looking for gas counts, you're looking for how fast they got the gases, you're looking for chrono boost allocation. Yeah. All these different things can be put into the SC2 planner. We just aren't there yet, but it's definitely a possibility. Yeah. And not only that, it lets you be brutally efficient, which is so important in StarCraft, because obviously we're all about efficiency here.
Yeah. I mean, right now the SC2 Planner I feel like is geared more towards the lower level players, which is great. I mean, it's great to have tools for the casual players for the most part. But yeah, an upgrade for advanced upgrade for the professional players would be kind of a tree diagram. I think that's a really good idea. Yeah. Well, Robert, I know you don't have too much to say, but any thoughts and comments on that?
The only thing I can think of is for people who aren't sure of, let's say, timings, for example. So I presume with the planner you could check and see when the earliest Hellbat drop could hit you, or when a 4-gate hits you, or the earliest mutas can come out. It could give you an estimate time of when you should start looking for something. From a beginner's point of view, the pros will have this all in their head and they can pick it up in real time with them. So I think it would, as Andre said, there should be a product for the pros that can actually branch out depending on what you see or scout in game, and it will give you a good idea of timings. But for a pro, a lot more changes, variation happens, so you can't really plan for that too much.
Yeah. But how cool is this now? All of a sudden, I know my Hellbat timings are coming at 7 minutes, right? I've done it in the SDT planner. 7 minutes or 8 minutes, whatever it might be.
Right.
All of a sudden, I can disregard everything my opponent is doing and just say, hey, I want to do a macro build. What is a macro build? That incorporates a defense against 8-minute timings. And I don't even have to step into the game. That is something that's so beautiful, and it's so much faster, right? I'm going to tell you, as Zerg, I was doing the same thing that SC2 Planner was, but in my head on a piece of paper. My girlfriend can find like pieces of paper all over the field with timings.
You're such
gas
a nerd,
counts.
Andre.
Yeah, no, seriously. I'm in the shower. I'm coming up with builds on how to defend against things. Like, this is all stuff that the SC2 Planner does for you. It has all the timings for you. I'd be in the car sometimes looking about how long does it take for a Baneling nest to finish. All of a sudden, I don't need to do that anymore because I have SC2 Planner. So it definitely is capable. Like a lot of, I'll give you an example. A lot of timings dealt with 11 minutes is when Terrans would attack me in CVT. So I always wanted to have centrifugal hooks, which is Baneling speed, by 11 minutes. So just say, okay, let's get it by 11 minutes. I reverse engineer it. So, centrifugal hooks, 110 seconds, layers, 80 seconds, all that stuff. You can do that now 10 times faster. You don't even need to do the calculations because SC2 Planner does it for you. I think that's such a freaking useful tool. It's just, again, Chanman, as you said, we need better ways of saving these things, because to redo a whole build saying you want to inject your hatcheries, you want to, that takes a lot of time. and right now the notation that it's at is still pretty primitive. But
Yeah.
I feel like SE2 Planner is going to be really big as soon as it gets rolling.
Yeah, I actually like what you said about the reverse engineering, because I actually had to do that a lot for, like, for, like, say if I was doing a timing attack, I need +1 by this, and then you would just kind of, I would have to do all this math, like how long is +1 attack, like how long does that take to research, and then just kind of reverse engineer from there. And yeah, that's definitely a good point that you can just get like a general kind of outline on SE2 Planner, and then probably just take that into the game, and then just kind of morph it so it's kind of becomes like a pretty streamlined build from there.
Exactly, because a lot of times, like, you think up all this stuff, and then you're wondering, like, do I even have enough minerals and gas to do this?
Yeah, yeah.
So you have to go back even more. And, of course, me, being the mathematician, like, that's why I remember and I memorize all gas timings, right? Like, when I start my gas, how much time I need to get it, how many drones or probes or SEVs I need on gas. All of this can be calculated now, and I feel like it's more user-friendly because, let's be honest, not everybody is too competent or too good with numbers. Some people just hate numbers altogether. And this represents something where, let's say, a very creative person that's not good with numbers, who has the potential to be, out of the box, like TLO. Let's say he was bad with numbers. SE2 Planner would be an awesome, awesome tool to utilize in his practice.
Yeah, I totally agree with you, and that's it's a really cool thing. Like, and after talking to you, Andre, you've told me this before, and I remember you telling me how you derived builds just without even playing the game. Just in our previous conversations, and it really made me think about just how academic this game can really just be. Like, you can work all of these things out in your head, and I think it's not done enough, honestly. In right now, a lot of it still is kind of. It's very brute force, like playing games over and over and over until it's just like ingrained in your head in some weird abstract way, instead of really approaching it from an academic and therefore efficient manner, which is work these times. I mean, like you said, the timings of when certain attacks come, and even something simple as just deriving a build that will give you some kind of economic advantage yet still deal with that is a perfect example. And people don't do the book work, I guess you could say, to figure that out in their head mentally, do that exercise, so that whenever they do play, it's already there. You just have to work out the mechanics to putting that, the motor skills to actually executing that.
Yeah, it's just so much faster. I'm actually not very good with numbers. Like, I don't just sit down with like a calculator and see like that. I just kind of like keep on doing single player over and over until I have it like planned out, and that would just take like an hour just doing that, and sometimes I would even mess it up, so it was just
you start over again after that, right?
Yeah, like,
I know what you mean.
Resume from replay actually does help with that, but it's still a pretty long process.
TheOgnis, we should talk more. I will help you out as much as possible because seriously,
you gotta give me the builds.
I like to create the builds more so than to actually play the game sometimes, so I will help you out so much.
Coach Andre, Coach Gretorp.
I know.
I like killing nerds.
I like killing builds. Awesome. All right, guys, why don't we take a quick break here, and then we'll move on to more of the competitive focus area, which we'll talk about taking losses and talk about task versus ego-oriented players, and we'll let Robert take it from there. Robert's going to be leading up this section, so we'll be back in just a second. Enjoy some music. All right, we are back. Hopefully you guys enjoyed that little break there. But okay, we're gonna get into just the competition competitive aspect of the show, and I'm gonna kind of let Robert take this over. But I'll introduce the topic. We're gonna be talking about the concept of task versus ego-oriented players, and both models are successful. But kind of wanted Robert to talk a little bit more about how this is apparent, or how this is how we're seeing this in esports, and maybe how it parallels to other sports. Go for it, Robert.
Okay. Basically, as Chris said, if you take players who occupy one end of the spectrum, if they're very task-orientated, they've got very little invested in the outcome of the match. For example, it's more on task mastery, how well they can play the game, their proficiency at actually executing what they want to do. So these players will play the game in adverse conditions. They're basically looking to get better at the game. So the end product isn't really success. It's getting better, which the end product of getting better can be success to a certain extent. And then at the other end of the spectrum, you've got people who are very ego-orientated. These guys will play to win. They can just, let's say, for example, Cannon Rush or Proxy Gate or whatever, just for the win, because a win is a win. And the winning is itself linked to their ego, and their ego to their confidence. So players who are very ego-orientated tend to feel the losses more, not because that they had more invested in it, but because their emotions and their actual self-confidence is invested in the wins and losses. So the task-orientated player might feel the loss as well, but because he's not emotionally invested in the win or the loss as much, it doesn't affect his confidence. He's more likely to be able to come out of a loss situation holding his head a little bit higher. So you might have a situation, without naming names, where a player might appear to be bad-mannered at the end of a tournament and refuse a sporting gesture, for example, but it doesn't mean that he or she is a bad person. It means that at the time, he or she was unable to do it because of something overriding what is usually normal sportsmanship or normal intuition. So basically, emotional tilting can happen after a game and not during a game, so much so that the normal action or the normal requirements to fulfill a sporting gesture isn't there. He or she can't physically do it because, let's say that the task mastery player should have no problem to do it, for example, because it's just a loss. At the end of the day, he or she will play and practice more at the end of it. The ego-oriented player just has taken a massive confidence drop, and the ego-oriented player usually doesn't suffer from these drops because there's attribution theory. The player will talk about certain external variables that are outside their control, like PCs were very bad, or your race is Zimba, or something could happen, for example, anything at all. And if they say they lost because of this, they're basically protecting their own self-confidence. And it happens in a lot of other sports as well. When you watch soccer, for example, Cristiano Ronaldo will immediately point at the ground or at a teammate and say, like, what are you doing? Instead of blaming himself. So his confidence always stays high if he blames someone else. So it's once you've lost a game or done something and you can't externally attribute it to something else, then you're kind of in a situation where your confidence has to take a hit. And that's not good for the ego-oriented player. So losing, for example, it can be a lot tougher on the player who really invested a lot into winning. I mean, certain people won't stand fully on one side of being ego-oriented or task-oriented. They can sit towards more one side, left or right, or they can sit in the middle. And kind of depending on where you sit in that spectrum, you can do a lot to help yourself train for that. So you can go into training or practice or competition knowing that, well, I'm ego-oriented or task-oriented. What do you want to get out of it? So like Mike, for example, if you were very task-oriented, you might finish your games in the tournament after a loss, and then you'll mourn for a while, but then immediately you go back into planning about how you're going to get better, because it's all about improving yourself. But if you are task-oriented, you might go on Twitter and vent and then say something inappropriate. But then the next day, once your emotions have cleared up, you're actually in a much clearer state of mind, and you can actually talk about what happened factually and logically. You probably know people yourself, Mike, that would be more on one side and more on the other.
Yeah. I would. Can I be a little bit of both? Like, do I have to be like?
Yeah.
Yeah. I wouldn't say I'm like. I would say I'm mostly task oriented, but I wouldn't say I'm like totally at all. So I mean, like after MLG, if I lose, I'll go straight to the bar.
Let's just be very clear. I'll say it, okay? I'll say it because Naniwa, Idra, those type of people are very ego oriented. Okay, it's a really scrubby mentality.
Well, okay, so I want Robert to clarify here, and you did, I did kind of mention it leading in, but both models are successful, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think it's you have to definitely preface what I'm saying, that it might sound negative, that the ego-oriented player might take loss differently, but if you look at top sport, if you compare Ronaldo and Messi, they're both the two best footballers in the world, arguably 1 and 2. One of them is very task-oriented, always thanks to his teammates, like he doesn't have to be pushed. One of them, they both work very hard, as they both would, but the actual attributions to what actually happened in the match, win or loss, are very, very different. One of them, you can tell that he wants to win all the accolades, individual accolades, as well as team. And they're both extremely successful. They both work. They're very extremes when you compare them together. And one isn't better than the other. It's just a case of how you manage it. So if you're very task-orientated, maybe you're okay with working by yourself, but not too good at asking others for help, for example. So you're like, oh, well, I don't want to bother him for help, when you really should be getting involved and saying, I need you to practice with me for 2 hours because I've got a match coming up. And then the ego-oriented player might just ask 10 people, regardless of if they have matches or not, because he's only thinking of himself. But both examples work quite well. It's just a case of managing the effects of it, because they can be negative for the passive, more task-oriented player as well. It's just a case of recognizing if you're really too ego-oriented or task, that it can affect your overall development as well. So Mike says he can be a little bit of both, which is true. You can be ego-oriented in certain situations, like if you're playing someone you don't like, for example, you don't really care about how you win. You just want to win, because losing to a person you don't like is pretty much, it's horrible. Whereas if you're playing someone like a normal Korean and you're not really too bothered about it, you just want to see yourself not get 3-0'd compared to last time. You want to guess a 2-1 or something like that. So that's improvement, but it's not, your confidence isn't invested in the outcome, because you can take away a lot more than just a big W or an L at the end of the day.
Yeah, like I even used to just smurf a lot, and that was just because my ego. Like if I lost the game on my real ID, I would get like pretty pissed, just because I felt like there was something on stake, and I feel like a lot of people have that problem as well. I've been trying to kind of steer away from it, but yeah, that was something I kind of had to tackle like just a while ago. So, I definitely see both sides of the spectrum.
I mean, it's something that it slides, right? It's something that changes over time. And Robert, correct me if I'm wrong, but it has a little bit to do with the whole growth versus, like competition mode too, right? Like if you're in a growth phase, you're probably more likely to be a task-oriented person, right, or task mastery person, or in that phase versus being an ego, right? And I'm not sure if you caught that discussion, Mike, last week, but this whole we talked about growth. We talked about basically there are times where a player should, from an expectation standpoint, is in a growth stage where you're trying just to improve things. You're putting yourself into very uncomfortable situations on purpose to improve overall. Therefore, you haven't mastered this area, so you're kind of growing in that standpoint. So when you go to tournaments during that stage, you for yourself don't have, your expectations aren't as high, because that you're kind of training, right, in this mode of getting to a certain point. You're not there yet. And then the other phase is like where you've kind of reached that state, and then like this is kind of the best you're going to be for now, without kind of taking that next step of improvement. And you're all about just win right now. And I feel like that there's a little bit of parallel in that versus where you are in terms of task mastery versus ego.
Yeah, I could definitely see that. Yeah, like at tournaments, like I definitely kind of have a clearer conscience with that, and I don't go on Twitter and stuff, so I can definitely see that. That's probably what I meant when I said I'm a little bit of both.
I want to say one thing real quick because I think I've seen something very apparent in just the scene. I think the ego side, it's successful because of how confident and how much self-confidence that particular person have. So they have higher extremes. And I'll give an example. Naniwa, like this guy shows up to round of 4 GSL twice in a row. Obviously, he had a lot of confidence going into that. He had so much success. He had so much fandom. He had so much, people, so many people backing him up that he had a lot of confidence going into that. But his lows are, he comes all the way over to Europe to play in WCS and he doesn't make it. And of course, after that, he's just going to tilt. He's probably not playing the best StarCraft right now. I can guarantee that because he is subject to his emotions. But what you can get from that is confidence, and you're going to look at someone, I think, that was a gigantic outlier in the scene that didn't practice at all or practiced very little compared to other pro gamers, which is Stefano. In Wings of Liberty, he had so much confidence, and it was a couple of different things. He had confidence because he did feel like his style was the best style. He did feel like he was better than other people. But at the same time, after talking with him, he doesn't let it get to his head, and he has a very open approach to it. So he says, okay, I'm still going to exhaust all the possible options that I can go into. Like, he had a very open mind, especially in Heart of the Swarm, where I got to talk to him a little bit about how he deals with, let's say, air Protoss. And he says, like, oh, I have the best counter to late game Protoss. Like, that's someone that we really need to draw attention to. The ego side is more of a confidence issue that I think a lot of the what is the other task-based side? Task mastery. I feel like they lack confidence because they realize how much stuff they have to actually learn, right? Like they realize it's so huge. I'm still such a pupil in this game that I can't even imagine myself becoming a world-class player until I master everything. So it's that fine line of how do I have confidence without being cocky? I think that's something that we have to investigate more for
you can be cocky. So there are a lot of attributes that obviously the community and a lot of people kind of view as being not favorable, right? Like being cocky and that sort of thing. But there's nothing, when we're talking about just pure competition, being cocky, being overly confident, there's nothing wrong with that when in terms of trying to win, right? If the end result is winning, and we're not talking about sportsmanship or anything like that, we're just talking about winning, there's nothing wrong with that.
Maybe cocky was the wrong word. Maybe like dismissive. I think that's the best thing because that's what happens. Naniwa was being dismissive. Idra is probably the most dismissive person of ever with his losses. Like, oh, this guy's fucking terrible. He just did a stupid build and coin flipped. It's not really that simple.
Not respecting your opponent. Yeah, got it.
Correct. Mm-hmm. And it's stupid to be dismissive in a game where we're trying to learn as much as possible. And it is about making it into a chess match, right? Making it so that we can see and be very observant of what our opponents are doing. And I think that is something that really needs to, not only the scouting, but also just not having that mindset of they coin flipped and I lost. That's very dismissive. It's not normally a coin flip. It's probably like 60-30 in favor of you. Like Idra, you had a winning position and just screwed it over. Like, don't be dismissive.
So I got a question for you, Mike. How do you look at it from the standpoint of just StarCraft? Just StarCraft 2, like when because Andre kind of brings up a good point, and I think I've talked to Robert you about this, and particularly in the case of like Dario, because Dario is the type of player who really looks at StarCraft 2 as such an unbelievable game, and he knows that every day is like he's going to learn something new, and he's going to he'll never reach that point where he's perfect. He can be good at everything in the game, right? So every day is kind of like he's a very task oriented person, right? Like Dario's always gonna after he loses, he's always going to be the guy that's like, okay, I need to keep working hard. I need to keep improving things. That's how he is, right? And I think it has a lot to do with just his view of the game. His view of the game is just this like never-ending quest, to perfect this game. And for me, it's like there's nothing wrong with like taking those stages in that process and trying to like derive value from it, whether value are wins, values or prize money, that sort of thing. There's nothing wrong with actually, kind of going out of that growth stage, right, and going into that competition stage and just, trying to take everything you can take at that point, right? There's nothing wrong with that because you're still improving, you're still doing that. So my question to you, Mike, is that how do you look at it? Are you more along the lines of somebody like Dario who looks at this game as just this never-ending quest of perfecting, and whatever accolades you get on the way to this is what you get, or are you more
that's
like
kind of weird
into the competition type of thing?
Yeah, that's kind of weird. It's like I've even been like this even in StarCraft 1. It's like I wouldn't even sign up for tournaments because I felt like I was never ready.
Yeah, that's a good
and
example.
I would just like
That's
I would
a great
just dodge
example.
tournaments.
Mhm.
That's why like I didn't even play in like the play-ins, which is like kind of a big regret, just because I was like,
Oh,
yeah,
wow.
I can't take out Hyun, I can't take out Revival.
Yeah, gosh, yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah, so that's definitely been like a problem of mine. That's probably why you haven't seen me, or most people haven't even like heard of me, just because I haven't even signed up for tournaments, just because I always feel like I need something to work on, or I'm not like my play isn't perfect. There's a lot of holes in my play. So yeah, like I didn't even like sign up for like tournaments. I went to like MLGs and I would just put like so much pressure on myself, and I would just be like, oh my god, I'm gonna like quit the game if I like mess up or something. So just I kind of failed at those as well. But yeah.
Well, you put
what was
all
the
your eggs in
question
one
again?
basket, right? In those
Yeah,
MLGs,
pretty
so,
much.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
So that's kind of when I did pretty horrible there. So.
Well,
Wait,
so,
what's the
so,
question?
so based on that, no, those are actually good. Thanks for sharing that with us for sure. But based on that, what did you kind of learn? I mean, what are you doing differently now?
It's kind of weird because there's like not that many
Yeah,
tournaments
that's true.
anymore, so
That's
it's
true.
kind of like I'm
That's
out of
true.
luck right now. But yeah, definitely I'm gonna be trying for like the Shoutcraft and stuff. So I'm basically trying to put my name out there as much as possible now.
Yeah.
Go for Shoutcraft, trying to do well for WCS, so practicing a lot for that.
It's
Making
nice that
sure I
you
don't
beat
miss
Jadong,
anything.
right?
Exactly.
Yeah, I still have
Doesn't
I still have a
hurt.
lot to go. So
Yeah, but see that statement right there. Okay, okay, this is good. We should analyze this a little bit because that's what a lot of people do too. It's like something happens, and there's always a reason for it, and you just kind of dismiss even something something nice that happens to you, right? You beating Jadong for whatever reason it is good for you, right? And
yeah.
it's good that it was made Reddit. It's good that it was pointed out, and I mean, obviously, we never want to let things get too far and too much into our head, but
Yeah.
but that is something, right? I mean, that is a nice thing that's happened, and I feel like besides just being hard on ourselves as players, we need to be able to enjoy the good things too whenever they do happen, right? And
Yeah.
Yeah, when I
And
like
can I
got
ask,
totally
Mike-
smacked in the. Oh, wait, sorry, go on.
I was going to say, how do you put down beating Jadong 2 exactly? Why? What was the reason?
I guess he didn't exploit some of my weaknesses, like the round of 32. Like I lost pretty much to all-ins. Like all the roach veins and stuff, that just really caught me off guard. That was definitely a hole in my play. And like after those games, I was like, wow, I like definitely wasn't ready for like tournament. I wasn't like tournament level ready. So I kind of like put a lot of pressure on myself. So I definitely needed a lot of work after that. So I basically just worked on like defending all-ins, and because I felt like that was my weakest problem, and like he didn't exploit those. So like I'm very comfortable in like the mid and late game. So basically everything just went according to plan, but I don't know, I don't feel like it's the biggest achievement at all, so
Well,
I don't know.
Well, I agree with Chris in that you should really kind of relish the times when you do well. Like it's not very good to say, like you'd probably be more task oriented if we were to talk about that actual win, in that you said, well, he could have exploited my weaknesses more, but he didn't. And it's not your best achievement. Whereas if you are ego orientated, you're on Twitter saying you beat J-Dom, you're the best, love me. So the fact that you're saying that it went a certain way, you're very task orientated with regard to that. And I understand that you're the type of player that doesn't feel like he's ready, for example, and it's a bit tough in the US in that there's not too many tournaments to. Basically, when athletes will train, they'll train up to a point and try to peak for a tournament. So if there's not many places where you can peak, you're always at kind of middle ground, always training, never quite having an opportunity to test your skill against someone. So artificially, it would be good for yourself, that type of a player, to have phases in the month, or like esports is really quick. It's a month is like a year in real sports, but if you had phases in your month or year where you artificially create a tournament scenario whereby you'll play against people from, I know you have clan wars, but you actually use them as a time to go into ego competition tournament mode. So you're done with all the getting better at something and you focus specifically on the match. And then once you're finished with that, you go right back into your development mode, because it seems like you're in your development mode a hell of a lot more than you should be. And for someone like you, if you don't feel like you're always ready, you're going to be in trouble.
Yeah, that's why I was just skipping tournaments. Even when like maybe a year or two ago, there were a lot of like online tournaments. I just didn't sign up for them. So
yeah.
So I got a question right now, because this is something that really affects me. I'll beat someone. You know, I've beaten pretty big people in the past, like while I've been casting, and off of those wins, I'll feel great. I do relish those, right? Just for me personally and trying to train. But then I'll go back on ladder, and I'll lose to these randoms, like no names. And it makes you feel like shit, Robert. Like, the juxtaposition of, oh my god, I'm at this level, and then right next to, I just lost against, you know, Vampire 4478. What the hell is going on with my life?
That's true.
That's why you just off race after you win. So that never happens. You're like,
yeah, I know, right? Like that is something that's really, really tough to take in, and I'm sure a lot of pro players feel that too, because I mean, it's apparent all over the place. TLO goes and crushes WCS. He goes back to ladder, and you know, sometimes his heart probably breaks a little bit because he loses to people that he feels he shouldn't be losing to. How would you say a player should kind of approach that type of experience?
I feel that if a player is in StarCraft, because there's so much variation, they can, let's say, do really well in the WCS group and win an All-Terran group, for example, and it's really good. And as you said, go back to ladder and lose against someone that you shouldn't lose to. But it can be a combination of, well, he did something that you didn't see, because if you're not directly looking at something, you're not going to see it. So teams and players will have off days where they don't play as well as they could. And when you see lower teams play against really good teams, they almost always play out of their skin or lose horribly. So the times that they play out of their skin and play really, really well, they're playing well above their level because they're almost being forced to. And then when they play against people who aren't so good, it's almost it's like an arousal theory, so that when you play against someone really good, and if you feel confident and the person is decently placed, not too high skill level above you, you can play at 110% of what you can play at. And then if you're playing someone who's a platinum, for example, you don't care about it. You're like, well, I just beat someone who's in top grandmaster in Korea. So you go into the game and you're almost on automatic. You're not doing things so well, and you end up losing the game. So you have to find a balance of optimum arousal. So you're in a flow state that you can see everything that you're looking for, and everything that you've practiced, you actually can implement it in a tournament game. But then sometimes you play against a guy and you might as well be looking out the window, because you're not actually picking up on all the subtle cues that you normally would. Because I think that a lot of it is pattern recognition in StarCraft, and the pros do it unconsciously. Like once you get to a high enough level, you don't have to think about this and that. You just do it without actually thinking about it. So your actual ability for multitasking and everything else is so much higher than the average person who's staring at the geysers wondering when they come down. You just kind of take a quick glance, count the gas, go back to what you're doing, and you do that in half a second. So I feel that there are times when you should really take a break from the game and come back at it fresh, or have a break for a day or two, because you can't really play the same way every single time. If you can, you're a special type of person, and that's what the really, really high guys can do. They can play at the top level. I think Innovation was rank 1 on the GM ladder. That means that he's playing against really good guys consistently. And I wonder what his upper limits are, for example. But considering he all kills everyone, he's just
it
very,
helps
very
when you
good.
beat everybody playing every day.
So it's mostly just about focus, you would say? Just focus on the ladder?
And focus is something that is now infinite. There's a finite amount of focus and concentration that you have. So it's like motivation as well. You have to ration it, use it when you can. Use it on your focus training, like you said, Mike. That's the best time to use most of your mental faculties is on that. And then maybe you can ladder at about 80%. It depends how long your ladder sessions are like as well.
Focus is infinite?
It's finite.
Oh, it's finite. Okay, I thought you said infinite. I was like, my focus is not infinite.
Sorry, I might have said that, but no, it's definitely finite.
But one comment I have about just kind of getting back to the Jaedong thing is, sometimes it's just a matter of how you look at it. Like, because I know you're looking at it from the standpoint of, he should have attacked your weaknesses, right? But if I were to look at, let's just say another sport, and let's say we're watching, I don't know, the first round of the U.S. Open or something like that in tennis. And, Roger Federer is playing a guy that hits it to his forehand every single time. And for those who don't know tennis, Roger Federer's forehand's like his weapon, right?
Yeah.
One of his big weapons.
I'm a big
He's
tennis
not going to
fan,
complain. He's not going to feel any worse about beating that guy to a pulp because he's hitting into his strength, right? Mm-hmm. And so that's one thing. Another thing is too, you can measure your strength against Jaedong's strength and say that you're better than him in that. Maybe you're better than him in that particular stage of the game. Sure, he might be able to beat you with a Roche Bane all in, but that's not what happened. So you can't really even measure that. You know what I mean? So you can at least take something from that and take some. I feel like you can take some satisfaction in that, and it's healthy to take that. It's not saying that you're egotistical or anything just because you think, because we all know. I mean, as long as we're honest with ourselves, we all know that this game is super complex. There is some degree of luck to this game, and how strategies line up with each other is sometimes how tournament results are, or how the matchups line up with each other, right? But still, there's so much value that's gained even when those things line up that I feel like you should relish as much of the benefit as you can get. Like it's like if somebody was a master at ZVZ and every single one of his rounds lined up to ZVZ, so he won a tournament, like DreamHack or something. Well, I feel like he should absolutely try to relish as much of that value as he can, because every other instance he's not going to get any value from it, right? So, those wins you need to, I feel players should take as much as they can from it, because otherwise it's just going to be lots of lows, versus highs, right? So
TheOgnis, send those replays. Every single replay you get, you send them to like Husky. You just relish that shit forever.
Yeah,
They call that YouTube money.
Tweet all day.
Exactly. Or send it to Dan. They'll go over and net it like every week. Okay, so why don't we? I think that's going to be it for just the areas, and this is kind of the section where we kind of brainstorm with you guys in the community and viewers, and kind of get your ideas and questions. In the past it's always been questions, but it'd be awesome if you guys had any ideas you wanted to talk to us about, and maybe we could have a mini discussion. So if you guys want to, go ahead and call in. My Skype ID is ChanmanV, and message me kind of what you want to talk about, because I kind of want to screen these a little bit better than before, because some folks are complaining about just bad questions in the past. But okay.
Hey, I'm gonna get another slice of pizza real quick.
Okay, cool. Looks like we got Stimulants. Stimulants are regular, and his name's David Kim too. So, did y'all watch the David Kim State of the Game, by the way?
Yeah, I did. It's pretty good, man. It's pretty good to be a Terran, because he was supporting us, so that's good. Hellbats are okay, that's what he said.
You bastard.
Apparently, yeah.
And this pizza I got from pizza.gg is so delicious.
So delicious. What kind of pizza is it again?
It
the root
is
pizza.
extra cheese, pepperoni, sausage, spicy Italian sausage. I'm sorry, olives, and what is that green thing called again?
Green peppers.
No.
Jalapeno?
Jalapenos. Thank you.
Jalapenos. All right. You don't know Spaniards? Come on. Aren't you Hispanic?
My mind blanked.
Oh
Man.
my gosh. Okay.
I'm getting old. Okay.
Yeah.
I'm getting
Hey,
old.
is it only
Kid.
the pizza that's
wouldn't
50%, or
understand.
like breadsticks and stuff too, or
Oh,
no?
I
that's a
think
good
it's
question.
everything.
Yeah.
Really? Oh, that's so
think
sick,
so.
man.
Okay, so
But
I
who
guess
cares? You
David
should
doesn't
just
want to call
do
in.
it.
He's gonna ask a question here.
Oh, the stimulant. I know him.
Yeah, Stimulant. He's in a lot of a lot of different stream chats. I
Yeah.
guess he's not gonna call in here, but he has a question. Oh, there he goes. Here he goes.
It's David
Hey,
Kim.
Hey,
Can you hear
David,
me?
what's up?
What's up, man? Can you hear me?
Yeah, it's a different David Kim, guys.
Oh gosh, don't mess with me like that.
How's it going, man? You got a question for us, or just an idea,
Yeah.
or anything like that?
I actually do have a pretty, I guess, decent question.
Okay, shoot.
It's about like esports psychology, etc. Like, if you watched the DreamHack that Huck won, he had Noni like in the booth with him. Kind of like I think Huck or Noni like was telling Huck like, "Hey, you're playing well. You just dropped a few games to I believe he played Moon and he beat Moon in the finals. But like he was just dropping games because I don't know, he was making like little like micro errors and such. So Noni came in the booth and kind of like reassured him like, "Hey, you're just playing well. Just keep on doing what you're doing." Like, how important is having a person like that at major tournaments? Because like with infiltration, he has Laugh, and Laugh is like another infiltration basically. They have like notepads of like data and like players like tendencies, like they jab or do like fierce low, fierce high at like fighting game tournaments. So like how important is it to have someone like that at major tournaments? Obviously very important, right? But like that's like one of the game winning factors. With like Michael Jordan, he obviously had his coach, with the 11 rings, Phil Jackson, like one of the best basketball coaches of our time and age. So that's my question.
I'll step in real quick.
Oh yeah, you go, Andre. Sorry.
I coach Wongson for a lot of the NASL matches, and he beat people like Tasia. He went 1-2 against MC. And there was someone else that he beat, which was a huge upset. But nevertheless, I would say that Wongson is not as strong of a player as any of those players. I wouldn't say even with lag that's there, I wouldn't say that there's an inherent advantage for Wongson ever. But he's able to beat them, and I really feel like he was able to do that just because of confidence, and also like I would tell him, you are a better player than him if it goes to this place. You've researched it more, you have more experience in this area, and we're gonna find fatal flaws of our opponents and go with that. And once you do that, he actually like humanized the player so much to the point where it was a reasonable thing to do, because beforehand he was saying like he's in the group of death, like there's no way he's getting out of it. But it's just the fact that he's able to kind of contextualize, rather than it being this huge leviathan in your head that's like I don't even know how to tackle it. You go little by little, and then you are able to actually overcome it, or at least overcome one of the weaknesses. And I think that's really important, because as soon as you realize how much better of a player someone is, you just get super prudent, and you don't know what to train for. Like you don't even know what you're practicing for anymore. But once you're able to start to focus a little bit, and on top of that realize that you are playing a way to beat your opponent, then it becomes a lot more doable. Like I'll give you an example. If I gave you a huge test on astrophysics or something like that, of course you don't even know where to start. But if I give you a portion of the astrophysics that only has to deal with this set of stuff, it becomes a lot more manageable, and then you can try to overcome your obstacle that way. I think that's something big that coaches and people that support you do. They reassure you that you can do whatever it is, even if you are down 0-2, 0-3, whatever it is, you can come back into the game because they assure you. Else you're just going to be second guessing yourself in the booth. You don't know what's going on. You don't know if you're playing well. You think you're playing terrible because you're losing, but in fact you're doing everything right. You have positive EV. It's just standard variance in the game.
I think it also kind of depends on the player, though. Like for instance, like I'm not like a big fan of like in between coaching. Like I kind of like coaching, like I guess before the match and maybe like after, just kind of going over mistakes. I like to kind of just rely on like my practice beforehand rather than, you know, say if I'm struggling with something, I'm not trying to like change my entire game plan just because of that. So I'm not really focusing on the player, just kind of focusing on my game plan and try to make small adjustments like that. But I don't know. I think it depends on the player, like for like in between coaching or in between game coaching.
Yeah, I have to agree with Mike as well with that. I think some players will not want someone there. They don't mind playing a best of 3 or a best of 5 by themselves without having someone there. Some players, you're looking for either, let's say, actual strategic coaching support. So someone will be saying, well, he always goes hatch first. You know, you can punish that next game, or he always has late link speed or something. And then you have coaches that will be there for emotional support. So a player might be winning 3-0 or losing 3-0, but either way, the fact that the finish line is so close or so far, it can change how they play. So if a player is losing 3-0, you might need someone just to say, just stick to the game plan, and you know, that's all you can do, because you can't really, I don't know which, I think it might have been Mike who said it, you can't really try to play Tasia. For example, if I said to Andre he's got to go play Tasia and beat him, well, he'll say how. But if you break it down into saying, well, all you have to do is do this strategy like we practiced against him, don't think about everything else, then it really like narrows down your field of focus to what you actually have to do. And the humanizing aspect as well is very important for players that maybe you mightn't see much, because if you only see people at tournaments, you only get to see their competitive side of things, their game face, and they look quite scary because they're 100% focused and they look like they've got no nerves at all. I'm probably talking about Koreans in general, but if you meet them outside of the game, they're really nice, they're very amiable people, very kind as well. So if you spend time with them, you realize that they're really nice that way for free. And if you meet them and then when you play them, you realize that, well, you know, they're just people, they're just kids who play the game a lot and they're good at it, but you can beat them because, you know, NA players can beat Jaedong and European players can beat Koreans. It's not beyond the realms of possibility that one person can play better than they normally do. It doesn't mean that it was a fluke. It just means that you played better than you normally do, and then it just increases basically your upper limit potential. Like, why don't you play like this every day? Why don't we try to make sure you play like this every day instead of just one every 50 games, you know?
Yeah, I mean, I think I'll just add just a tiny bit at the end of that, which is I think a team is always going to, one team, not necessarily like a StarCraft 2 team, more just a team around you will always be beneficial to you. Like a player will always be better if he has a group of guys or a couple guys or even one guy with him doing some of the things that he just doesn't have to do. I mean, it's just a matter of just having less things to do as a player, so therefore you can focus on those things even more than you know you would normally have to. And those things can be like strategy, like you were talking about, or you know, like just what Andre was talking about, strategy. And then just once you come up with the strategy, all you have to do is just go with that, right? And emotional too. And emotional is it's more like it's kind of like a golf caddy, you know, like a golfer with a caddy is probably going to feel more comfortable, play better than a golfer without one, because you know that's just how we are as humans. We just feel a little bit more comfortable, I think, when you have other people around you. So, all right. Anyways, thanks for the question, David. We got some more callers here. I gotta get to them.
No problem, man. Big fan of all you guys. Good luck, Mike and WCS, and keep up the good work, man.
Thanks.
Awesome. Later.
Thanks.
Okay, we got Victor here. It's a good first question. I remember that Noni session with you. That was good stuff. It was cool seeing like Sase recently with Naniwal too and DreamHack.
Yeah, it also depends who it is. That's your moral support or whatever too. Like Sase and Naniwal, for instance, are just really close friends. You know, some people might not have that like distinct bond, so it can't just be like your manager or something.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Hey, Victor, what's up?
Hey, how's it going?
Good, good.
Hey, my question is sort of related to the previous guy's call, but it's with respect to the improved tool sets that you guys were talking about, being involved in developing and improved technical resources on the whole. right? And how it relates to the role of a coach as it's traditionally thought of in terms of either, you know, a personal coach where it's one-on-one with a player, or a team coach, say somebody like along the lines of Apollo or something like that, right? In the sense that
Okay.
you have players who, let's say that there's all these improved technical resources for determining builds and looking at replays and utilizing these types of things, but players in general have a lot to work on already in terms of just their basic gameplay and mechanics and grinding out games. Do you think that access to these tools really where it'll shine is in a sense where coaches can take advantage of these resources to help better you manage their players in a sense where they can come up with all of these, here's how you approach the situation, here's how this build order should go in order to defend against such and such an all-in or something like that, where players themselves might not really have the time necessarily to take advantage of something where a coach might, I guess, is where I'm going with this.
All right, let me take this one first, and then I'll start it off at least, and you guys can. You're absolutely right in that regard. Everything you said there, I think, is right. But the reason that we're kind of doing this show, and really the biggest angle, I think, for why we're doing it is we want to empower the players, because I think one of the most common problems right now is really proactiveness within the players themselves individually. Has a lot to do. I mean, just you see a lot of players just waiting around to get on teams. B, when they're on teams, they kind of wait around for things just to happen within the team sometimes. Like things just to be organized themselves. Whether it's a team house or team practices and that stuff. I mean, it's a lot of just waiting around and waiting for somebody else to do it. So creating these tools absolutely could be used by coaches, could be used by teams in a more group-oriented way if they want to. But I want players themselves, if they want to be able to do these things themselves. To have tools that they can do themselves if they choose to do it. And that's what it's all about for me. About you guys?
I think even in the Western scene, it's probably gonna just have to come down to the players anyways, just because there's no coaches available. So if anything, I guess like if the coaches would use it, would be for like Korean teams or something that somehow spreads there. But it's a,
They're not going to listen to me.
A big
or
problem.
any of us
Yeah,
on this
yeah.
show. They're not going to listen to anything on this show. I'm telling you.
they
let's be
will.
honest.
I'm gonna tell them.
Let's be honest.
This is for the listeners, okay?
What pro really listens to coaches? I mean, can you even think of who would be a coach in the foreign scene that players would respect their opinion, or they would say something that the players don't even know? I don't think that list really exists.
I don't even think like the Western scene is to that point yet, because for the most part, they won't listen to coaches unless they're like an ex-player, and I don't think like esports has been around long enough, or even I don't even think it's like lucrative enough for people to like stay in esports just to be a coach. Like a lot of teams, I don't think could even like afford like a full-time coach.
Yeah,
that's like an ex-player.
Yeah.
So they would definitely need experience like, being a player themselves.
It's just respect. I mean, there could be coaches that have a level of respect from players. It's just not the case here in the West.
Yeah.
So, but it leads to kind of like what you were talking about, Andre, about just when you were coaching Wang Sin. You can either look at this problem as something that's just enormous, this kind of Leviathan, or you can try to fix it with doing little things and working our way to a solution.
Yeah.
And that's what we're trying to do here on Pro Corner.
I think that's the best use of coach. Like, for instance, everything I told Huangson, he already knew, right? Like, there's nothing strategically that me as a coach could tell a player and they won't know really. Like, it's very, 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 very small. I think that for a lot of coaches, but what we can do as a support system is just break it down for people and make things seem manageable and just offer that support. I think right now that's the best type of support that we could possibly have. But yes, there is like, hey, this guy goes 15 to hatch like 78% of the time. That's going to be useful stats, but I think of I don't know, a lot of the choices, like, hey, you should all in this game, or you should do this game, I think you should really leave it up to the players. For now, I think it should be left up to the players.
Sure, I think it's definitely a looking to the future type situation where you have a more, where you have a bigger infrastructure in terms of organizations. We're looking to a future where esports has grown and it's like, it's more in line with what you would consider professional sports. And I think that Chris actually, I think that was Chris, had a really good analogy in terms of a golfing caddy, where those guys are useful, you know what I mean? And I think even pro players sometimes can lean on their caddies for advice. Or if you look at Major League pitching, for instance, where the relationship between a pitcher and a catcher in terms of, trying to strike somebody out or whatever is kind of an analogy I think that makes a little bit of sense. But thanks for taking my call. And TheOgnis, man, good luck.
Thanks, man.
With WCS, man, I'm a big fan. Root for Root.
Thanks.
All right, thanks, Victor.
Guys. See you
later. Good question. Liking how they're going today. All right, we got Ryan here. Oh, wrong window. Too many overlays, dang it. Ryan, hey, what's up, buddy?
Hey, what's going on?
Good.
Long time listener, first time even attempt to call.
Oh yeah, what's your username in chat?
It's Opal3SA. I go by a bunch of different, but it's Opal3SA.
Okay, cool. Well, thanks for supporting the shows and watching it for so long.
Yeah, I do want to say just a shout out to the show. Like, this is like definitely the best show for discussion, and I have to give a shout out to Gretorp and North American Star League for the Pulse. That show is like,
thanks, man.
It's like the sports center of esports. Like, and I saw a picture, and I don't know what the status is of the Nazzle studio, and like, I'm on Reddit all the time. I'm on WTF all the time. When I saw that picture of the studio empty, I got like a shock. I was like,
Yeah.
So,
have you ever heard of Candy Crush? We're probably going into that competitive.
Candy Crush. Oh my goodness,
crap.
come on now.
Okay.
Candy Crush.
My troll is ineffective. I'm sorry.
Candy Crush.
So I actually wanted to get somewhat technical with you guys because I do have 2 Terrans on the program, and then it's not often that happens. And I'm like a Master League Terran, like mid-masters. And I just wanted to get you guys' take on like this build that I've been wearing. It's like the only build that I do, and I get very excited when I see other pros do it, and at some point they deviate from it. And I've seen a bunch of different deviations, and I just wanted to see what you guys' take is on the best deviation from it, or at least what is the best potential, so to speak. And that is like, okay, so the build is pretty standard. 1 racks, fast expand. I don't care if you're talking about on the low ground or on the high ground, it doesn't matter. And then, you get out a Marine, and then you skip the second Marine, you get the supply depot down, you get the, the SCB, and then you train one more, you make your second Marine later, and then, boom, you take both your gases, right? Everyone, how familiar are you guys with this build? And then from there, you go Reactored Hellion, or you can go Widow Mines, etc. And I saw Fantasy pull this off, and I've been doing this build, and it's been crushing, like, ridiculous, and I just wanted hear you guys' take on it, or if it's even,
Wait,
so
what
he does
is
it's TBZ. I'm sorry, I should have prefaced that.
Okay.
Yeah. So you make four Hellions with your factory, but as soon as you lift it off and switch places, your barracks, you build a reactor and you build a starport, and you build at the same time you build an armory. So essentially, you're going for a reactored Hellbat drop like ASAP, but you take the first 4 Hellions and you kind of control the map, and you're looking for, is incoming roach pressure coming? You're trying to see for those things, and you're trying to like take their eyes off the focus, kill their creep tumors, trying to make them think like something's happening. And then you fly in with the, the double Hellion drop. But I wanted you guys to talk about that build. If you've seen it, if you saw Fantasy execute it, I wanted you to talk about that versus simply, at that same timing, instead of throwing down the armory and the starport and going for that, you could just throw down 2 more armories, or 2 more, factories, and then add an armory, and you can just go so quickly into a mech-based build off of that. I'm finding that the double armory play seems a lot more stable versus some of the cheese that I get. But if they only go Ling, the big metagame right now is Ling Baneling into Muta, Muta-Ling Bang into eventually, Ultralisks. If they stay on Lings, the game ends, like immediately, like no stop. It's like, oh, you don't have a Roach Warren, maybe next time. So I just want you guys to kind of discuss the power of that build versus like the durability of the, of the flat out,
Oh yeah,
triple.
sure. Actually, yeah, I've seen that build. I've actually done it a few times as well. I think that probably just doing the Hellbat drop is probably the best bet, because I feel like mech. I mean, while it is strong, I feel like you do kind of have to open up with some sort of harass, just
Right.
because if you're just playing like a really passive, just like Helene base, like on the ground into 2 armory, that kind of allows the Zerg
Okay,
to
so
do a lot of
right,
stuff.
and I'm with you there, and I favor the Hellbat drop. But get this, okay? So let's just say you got the first 4 Hellions out, and then you're making your first 2 Hellbats and your first 2 Medivacs. Boom! That right then, probably when your first 2 Hellbats are halfway, that is the typical, either I don't want to call it 7 Roach rush followed by some Zerglings up front, or it could even be a little bit larger, like 8 or 9 Roaches. Or if they wait, if they wait until you get all 4 Hellbats and you're about ready to load up, that's the timing for Ling Bing Muta all in, or Ling Bling Roach all in. And so I just find that like if you go double factory on that build, when that build comes, you just go, okay, you lift up, you grab all the SCVs, you kind of usher them, whichever ones can get into the main, you bring them back into the main. Those 2 factories now have tech labs on them, they just finished, and now you just make two tanks, and the game is ending now. If they don't stop, the tanks come out, you siege up, you take your low ground again, you're already taking your third. I don't know if I mentioned that, but both Fantasy and myself, everyone that does this build, they make a third command center, like while, because you build up to about 500 minerals before the first 2 medevacs come out. So you're approaching 3 base economy, and if they Ling rush you, the game I have a problem with that build when they go roaches. So how is that?
All right, let's try to make this quicker, guys, because this is this is like old school Pro Corner right here. But unfortunately, we're not really doing that anymore. But yeah, Mike, if you can kind of.
Yeah. I think the build is not like this, like a super stable build. It is kind of a risk. Like if you watch GSL Innovation against Roro, I think he should have lost that game, but he basically just came back just because of like multitasking and stuff. But so it is a little bit of a risk. I think if you're gonna do that build, you should just take the risk on that. If you want to just play super safe, then I would just do like a safer build, like a non-Hellbat drop build.
Right. Going down the risk route, what else could you add? So if you're gonna take a risk, Add Banshees.
Oh yeah,
like how do you
add
improve
anything.
the risk on that?
you can add anything. Add another command center. 2 more armories.
Okay. All right, Ryan, buddy. We got some other callers too, but appreciate it. Thanks, man.
Thanks, guys.
Yeah, some old school Pro Corner here, man. Asking you exactly advice on builds. Okay, so I got one last. I don't think I have actually one last caller here in Ivo, and then we'll call the show. Ivo, I'm calling you, buddy. He's calling me at the same time. Let's try again.
Oh, okay. I'm here. Do you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah, I hear you, but it's actually so funny because it still says I'm trying to reach you on the calls.
I don't know. It was the same for me, but if you hear me, that's okay.
Yeah.
So first, I want to congratulate you for the show. I've been watching for the past couple of weeks, and I really, really enjoyed it. I mean, besides the vacation that you had, but still. The one thing I want to talk about is the strategies and the analysis of the StarCraft of the games that you described at the beginning with some tools like AC2 Planner. My idea is that it's really awesome that you want to do this tree of strategies with that Gretorp said, and to just see where your build is going from there, and you can calculate your delay, or you can see some stats about it. But the only thing that I see as a problem for me is that usually the games, these timings are like perfect, and usually through the game there's a delay because of the harassment, lack of vision, you didn't scout properly or stuff like that. That can put you in the dark, and usually, or if somebody influences your economy, that can also delay your build. And sometimes I don't really see if I'm going to be able to pull some type of strategy, because I don't know if I'm too behind or he's too ahead. And let's say I play ZVP, and we something like that happens. He tries to push me with Mothership Core, Zealot, and 2 Stalkers early in the beginning. And I have only links, but not enough. I lose 2 Queens and probably Evolution Chamber. And I decided to do run by. I kill like 10 probes of his because he's not walled. And at that point, I lost economy. He lost economy. And I'm not quite sure when, let's say, an Immortal Sentry all-in will come, or 2 Colossus based and 2 Immortals push will come. And my idea about this is, would it be a good feature to have based on a certain point of the game? So this analyzer that can calculate when the other player can push you with certain types of pushes. Like, let's say, when I can see after how many minutes the Immortal Sentry all-in will come, when he gets back gets back his economy, and stuff like that. So that will, if I have something like that, some information like that, I will be able to plan my decisions better, what type of strategy I will choose to go, let's say, Link Muda or Roche Hydra, and I want to hear your opinion.
I think that is entirely possible when we have a self-contained database of all of those builds within the same program. So, for instance, I've made the Immortal Sentry all-in, and all of a sudden now, when I'm playing Zerg, I can use those timings into my particular build. So I know, based on everything, I've played enough. I know normally they're pushing out anywhere from 8:40 to 9 minutes. They're setting up location, and their attack is geared around 9:45 to 10:30. And something like that. I know those are the standard timings. Now, I understand there's a lot of attacks that can come, like the 1 Zealot, 2 Stalker, and a Mothership Core. You're saying you lose 2 Queens and a couple of Zerglings. But realistically, you shouldn't say, okay, well, how can my build order planner receive that type of information, because obviously that's very difficult. But in reality, I think you need to be thinking, how can I prevent all of that damage from happening? So instead you say, I don't have enough Zerglings. My build overall is inefficient. This line that I just did is inefficient. So let's go ahead, instead of starting, if you want to do chess terms, instead of starting with a queen down or a rook down, you say, how do I maintain my queen? And then judge the situation accordingly. So in that position, I would say, I need more Zerglings. I need my queens in better places. And then I can go from there. Because really, it's useless to talk about the game after you lost a lot. You want to stay on neutrality and find some sort of advantage. If you can't find any advantages, you just keep staying on neutral terms until you can kind of get yourself a positional or material advantage from there. But don't ever start minus material or or minus position, because it's pretty much useless to invest time into.
Okay, I understand you. My idea was because most of the times that I lose, it's because I have lack of information where I'm standing through the game, and I make bad decisions, and usually the only times I lose is because they caught me off guard, because I missed the timings. I think it's gonna come like 30 seconds later, and I'm not prepared, and that's really my problem mainly.
One of the biggest things is, like everything Andre said, and plus it's really comes down to just really being able to understand even your opponent, like your opponent's races too. Yep. Like I know for myself, I understand Zerg like really, really well. Protoss and Terran, it's just so, right? So, if you were really trying to figure, if you really are seriously trying to figure all this stuff out, you would probably just add your knowledge of Protoss and Terran builds also. Because, again, once you figure this thing out, SE2 planners, all it is, guys, it's just a tool. It's replacing the whole notepad thing, where you and all these physical notepads that all the pros like write on. Yeah. That's all it is. You know what I mean? It's no better than that. It's not supposed to be better than that. So it really has a lot to do with your understanding of the timings too, and then just how those line up, and however you respond to a lot of those great suggestions by Andre there is just up to you and just what you derive. But you can do all this stuff without even playing. It kind of gets back to that. You can figure out all this stuff without even playing, which is great. That's the cool part about this stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, I completely agree actually with you.
Yeah.
I want to ask something, if it's okay, about the question. Okay, it's gonna be fast. About the question of the guy that's called before me about his build. Because
okay.
I'm gonna be quick. I'm Zerk, and I seen this build, but when I see only like 4 Hellions, I just kill those Hellions because I stop droning at 30. I make more links, and I kill them. And I want to ask, what's the better response to do? 6 Hellions, which will provide more safety, because the build is actually holding on those 6 Hellions which are on the map.
Here, I'll answer this real quick. If you're fending off Hellions with only Zerglings in the beginning stage, you will be behind. In pro level play, you're going to be behind economically 100% of the time. So that's why a lot of times people do not try to kill the Hellions, because you don't know if you're making more Hellions behind that or not, right? If you're making more Hellions, all my Zerglings are useless, and then I have to remake the Zerglings that I just lost. That puts me more economically behind. So technically, in the beginning stage as Zerg, you want to stray away from Zerglings. That's why we see Roach openings or just mass queens with a couple of Zerglings to parry the attacks. But realistically, you don't ever want to be attacking, you don't want to be counter-attacking a Terran in the early game stage.
Unless you're metagaming a metagame.
That's kind of why MVP was going like 2-fact Blue Flame against Life in GSL, just because Life always tries to do that. So he's like, screw that, I'm just gonna go 2-fact Blue Flame.
Yeah,
it's smart.
I put a bailing list and try to deny the natural, and then get my advantage of drones. I cannot break it. Usually in master level, you cannot just break it the entrance like that. But still, I can deny the natural for a long time to get my economy back with this that I explained.
Right, exactly.
That was my idea. So okay, thank you guys. I really enjoy your show. Awesome. Keep doing your great job, and I hope to see you soon again.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks for the call, man.
Okay. Thanks. Okay. Bye.
Bye. All right. Well, guys, I think it's time to wrap up the show. TheOgnis, awesome having you on, buddy. Hope you had a good time too.
Oh yeah. Thanks for having me on.
Wasn't too nerdy for you or anything like that.
No. This is all I do. I'm pretty nerdy myself. So.
that's why I have you on, man. No, but why don't we do some shout-outs and thank yous? You want to start off?
Yeah, sure. Just follow me on ROOT.TheOgnis. I also kind of have a different shout-out. I didn't really get to squeeze it in there, but so like if you guys didn't know, I was in the Quantic House for like half a year, so I practiced maybe like 8 hours a day on the Korean server every single day. And I wasn't happy with like how I was practicing, so I actually did a lot of research, like maybe like the last month I was there, before like they like shut down, and I actually found this book and I wanted to show. It's
okay, great.
Practice Perfect. It's by Doug Lamoth, and it's basically 42 rules for getting better at getting better. It's kind of like a self-improvement like practice book.
Oh, I've heard of that book.
Really
Yeah.
It really has a lot of good ideas, and you can actually translate a lot of it to StarCraft 2. So yeah, I would definitely recommend people like checking this out. That's basically how I started practicing now, is just based on this book. I've just done a lot of research because I definitely wasn't happy with how I was practicing before, because I was just like a ladder machine, and it didn't really translate, and I like didn't get any results. So I would definitely check that out.
Awesome.
Other than that, thanks to Root and all of our sponsors, and then also thanks to my personal sponsor, Y2Zoom.com. They sell a lot of cameras, camera accessories, and stuff like that, and you can get a 10% discount if you use the coupon code Theo, and that directly supports me. So, yeah, I would definitely go there.
Coupons Day, man. You just use coupons everywhere. Awesome.
Exactly, and also, buy a Papa John's pizza today. It's 50% off, and make sure to click the Root logo. Thank you.
Oh, we have to click on it? Oh, we do have to click on it. Okay, got it. I got it. I see. I didn't realize we had to click on one of these participants. Okay, cool. Let's see. Who's next? Robert, you want to go next?
Yeah, I don't really have too much to say compared to Mike. Just follow me on Twitter at ES_performance. You can find my blogs on Team Liquid as well. There's a few, and hopefully I'll be doing one a week or one every 12 days ish. So just take it a go for that.
Yeah, his last one on sportsmanship is pretty good. Check it out. Gretorp, Andre, you want to do?
Yeah.
Shoutouts.
You know, I know a lot of people are wondering what's going on with NASL and stuff. I'll just say there will be a statement for sure next week.
Next week, okay.
I honestly, like, we wish we could have told you earlier. We wish we could have told you faster. But really, our announcements were very time sensitive, and honestly, we're trying to work things and just work things out and see what's going on. But we can finally tell you guys something, and I hope you guys stay tuned for that NASL announcement. That's pretty much it. Thanks for tuning in.
My shout-outs, big shout-out to Razor for sponsoring the show, as always. And people are wondering about the giveaways. I am still figuring out the best way to do giveaways, guys. I just haven't figured out exactly the best way to incorporate the giveaways quite yet. So I'm just... And you know what's going to happen is, like, sometime in the near future, we're just going to have just this massive giveaway because I'm going to have so many things to give away. But we will be doing that soon. I'll be doing giveaways for subscribers too and that sort of thing. So obviously subscribe to the channel if you want to support the show and be part of these subscriber-only events. Big thanks to ROOT.TheOgnis for coming on. Again, you know, it's like I really appreciate just the players coming on, taking their time off, and you know, really helping this community project. I mean, this is like my show, but I'm treating this more like a community project because the goal is to help the community of players, whether you're casual or pro, just improve yourself in a more efficient manner. So, you know, big thanks to you for doing that. Big thanks to my co-hosts, as always, Andre and Robert, for spending time with me. And, you know, whether it's online or offline, going over this stuff. There's a lot of prep work that goes into this show. I mean, you guys just don't know about, and so appreciate those guys, you know, helping me out, and just even when I have ideas, just kind of bouncing ideas off you guys, and having, you know, their unique ideas too. If any of you guys in the community want to help in this process, please contact any of us and let us know your ideas. Let us know if you want to help with making the replay archive, with any kind of ideas you think that we should add to some of these tools. Let us know, because I'm not this like mad scientist who's not gonna listen to anybody type of thing. No, this is like, we want to take feedback from all you guys. So contact us on TL, on Twitter, on Twitch, wherever, however you can get a hold of us. You can follow me on Twitter at ChanmanV. You can follow this channel if you like any of my shows. And the VODs are going to be up available on youtube.com/ChanmanV shortly after this. There's no issues here, so I'll upload it right after this. And anything else? I guess you can watch Unfiltered on Tuesday. Watch Wednesday Night Sprites on Wednesday, and then watch Climbing the Ladder on Thursday. With
You're too busy, man.
I'll have Caldor on as a guest. So yeah, I'm just crazy like that. But yeah. So anyways, that's gonna be it for Pro Corner. We will see you next week. So next week, who are we gonna have on? Oh, I haven't finalized player quite yet for next week, but I will let you guys know as soon as I do. But we will have a show next week. So we will see you next week. See ya.
I guess.
Oh, wait a second. Hold on. I always